welcome to Brains at Work. This is the podcast where we believe different brains make brilliant teams. So I'm Steph, I'm a business coach, I'm a caffeine enthusiast, I'm a non-stop talker, as you're about to find out, and I'm someone who has 47 tabs open in my head at all times.
And I'm Claire, I'm Steph's co-pilot today. I'm armed with curiosity, mild chaos and a spreadsheet for feelings. So today we're talking about neurodiversity in the workplace, why support is often a bit where's Wally, the stigma that shows up and what we can do practically to fix it. So this is the launch of our new podcast, which is a little bit of a scary thing to do. This is going to be around neurodiversity, the stigma attached to it, and breaking down those barriers with neuroinclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just kind of a quick reality check. You know, it estimates around 15 to 20% of adults are actually neurodiverse. So that's your ADHD, your autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and so many more. So say if you're in a team of 5 people, chances are at least one person processes the world differently.
Yet many organisations still treat neuroinclusion like the office plant. It looks nice, but it's watered occasionally. It's not really part of the strategy. In fact, a UK survey found 60% of senior managers say neuroinclusion is a focus, but only 33 include it into their EDI strategy. That's nearly a third of organisations don't focus on it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is not just strategy. You know, neurodivergent employees have always reported a higher exhaustion and loneliness, you know, and they say they have too many have experienced harassment, discrimination, and it's all related to being neurodiverse. You know, I think that's a well-being and a culture problem personally. Burnout is real. RSD and PDA are real. And, you know, something that really needs to be focused on is the support and strategies and inclusion. So something I have personally experienced is I turned up for a job interview a few years ago. I was prepared, portfolio ready, everything was going really well. We'd spent a good half an hour talking, and the minute you mention to them, I've got ADHD, you can literally see the change in the face. Their eyebrows do that, uh-oh. Suddenly there is a very mysterious change to the priorities. Everything is then focused on, how do I cope? What are my weaknesses? But nothing ever asked about, you know, what are your strengths with neurodiversity? Because there is a lot of strengths that come with it. And I knew from the minute that conversation changed, the answer was going to be a no. And it was a no. And they came around and said to me, it's because I didn't have experience in the role. Well, realistically, they could have seen that from my CV beforehand if they thought it, and I wouldn't have had to come in for the interview. You know, and I've been in that role for a number of years, which makes me ask the question, why is there so much stigma around neurodiversity and people having it, and what is it?
So let's do a quick legal decoder. So in the UK, many neurodivergent conditions are protected as disabilities under the Equality Act 2010. That's if they have a substantial long-term impact on day-to-day activities. So protection applies to job applicants too, not just employees.
However, you do have to prove this.
Also, you don't need a formal diagnosis for employers to offer you support and reasonable adjustments. The Act protects many people without a diagnosis. ACAS specifically advises employers to discuss needs and make adjustments regardless.
Yeah, and you know, those recent tribunal cases remind me that employers that are failing to consider adjustments or dismissing candidates because they disclose they have a neurodiversity, this can be unlawful. The courts have now reinforced how disability is assessed and that applicants are covered, which I absolutely love.
So if interviewers raise that eyebrow and start composing a resignation letter from your application, that's a red flag. Alternatively, we could be looking at your neuroinclusion team. We'll get your questions out in advance. We'll clear out and have those clear task briefs, and we'll have a clear, quiet space for you without the office maracas.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, neurodivergent adults are dealing with real life stuff. Long NHS waiting lists, diagnosis uncertainties. You know, many people have neurodivergent families as well. You're sitting trying to look after your children and make sure they're on these waiting lists. And obviously there's even been a recent issue with ADHD medical supplies. That makes the workplace support even more crucial.
Absolutely. You've got to think of work as a juggling act. You've got your emails, your deadlines, the kids, there's the commute, the fluorescent lights that just have that sound where it's got like a bee trapped in a jar. Neuroinclusion means making the juggle doable. It's about flexible hours, fewer back-to-back work meetings, written instructions that don't require telepathy. These aren't nice-to-haves, they're evidence-backed adjustments that improve performance and retention and well-being.
Yeah, do you know what? I couldn't agree more with everything said there. I think we are both parents of neurodiverse families, working full-time jobs. It is a real juggling act.
So the reality of neurodiversity means that every interaction at work takes place between people with different brains, yet typically very few organisations are thinking about neurodiversity or neuroinclusion. This represents a significant missed opportunity for organisations looking to address their key talent priorities at the same time as addressing inequalities at work faced by neurodivergent people.
Yeah, and it's a real lack of awareness and understanding of neurodiversity, and it means it's rarely being considered in the design of workplace processes, management practices, environments, or in a way that we work in organisations. And I think a lot of the time as well, organisations want to do it, they don't know how to do it. And it's obviously meeting people and working with their employees that are really going to get that across.
Absolutely. So typical norms in the way of working may therefore suit some people but not others. They may be particularly challenging for perhaps as many as 20% of the people who identify as neurodivergent in some way. Neurodivergent people might find themselves marginalised by organisational cultures, processes and technologies that don't consider their thinking styles.
Yeah, I did see, there was a survey as well that revealed around 83% of employers say that the well-being of the people in their organisation is a critical priority. And then something around 70% said that EDI is also a critical priority for their organisation, but only 60% say that neuroinclusion is their focus in the organisation. Why is there such a big jump between it? And obviously, I think it was just over half, 53% of employers surveyed said that their organisation has an open and supportive climate where employees are able to talk about neurodiversity. And it isn't just about doing the right thing. Research shows neuroinclusive teams can boost productivity, accuracy and innovation when you've got design work to fit different thinking styles. And it's like allowing people with hidden disabilities, ADHD, dyslexia, autism to struggle in their workplace or socially. And to me, personally, I think that is no different than failing to provide someone with a ramp for a wheelchair. It's appropriate accommodations are all that are needed to support someone and to help them to thrive. So let's have a look at a few quick wins then. There are things that we can do to support ourselves in the workplace, our employees in the workplace, anyone who has a neurodiversity. So personally, I think a very quick win is pre-brief interviews. I think it's important to share the questions or the tasks outlined in advance. This gets you all, not just the neurodivergent people, but everyone on the best footing. They're going to find those great examples. They're going to really let themselves shine.
Then, of course, there's flexible working. That could be working from home. It's such it's so fantastic for your sanity. You're comfortable in your surroundings. The pressure's off. You're working in your own needs, and it's set up how you need it to suit your own needs.
Yeah, and that's one of my favourite ones. I loved becoming a flexible worker. I love the fact they've got the freedom at home. I love the fact that we've got businesses that are like, go pick your kids up, cook them dinner, pick it up at a time again that suits you. Obviously, I think a lot of employers now think as long as the work is done, that's what they need, and it is supporting wellbeing, so it is starting to come out. But I think you've also got your sensory sanity, thinking about fewer back-to-back meetings, thinking about quiet zones in offices, noise cancelling options, clear written instructions, because a lot of us do need written instructions rather than verbal ones. We want to know exactly step by step what it is we need to do. And I think a huge one as well is being able to just go for that walk to reset the senses.
Absolutely.
15 minutes walking out the office, quick walk round, even at home, finish that Teams call, have a quick senses reset.
Absolutely. We need to be making adjustments normal, create a simple and confidential process, no diagnosis barrier, and log the outcomes. See how this looks with your staff wellbeing. For me, it's all about trial and error. What might work for one person won't work for another. So it's being open to kind of taking that journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. And another big one is those train line managers, micro skills, how to have the conversation with staff, tailoring work, following through. And I think this is a massive one, and it's so important for people with PDA, with your pathological demand avoidance, which is something we will look at in more episodes. But having that supportive manager makes all the difference. Having them discuss options with you rather than telling you exactly what it is you need to do at this time, it gives you that more autonomy and it makes you feel really, really supported.
Absolutely. And then for me, the really big one is make it part of your EDI strategy, make neuroinclusion part of that. Measure it, track what you're doing, track the uptake, track the impact. And again, look at well-being, retention and progression. Measure those changes so you can really see that change that you're having, not just on those individuals, but also productivity within the organisation. So think of adjustments like Wi-Fi. Everyone uses them. Not everyone wants to go back to dial-up.
Nobody wants to go back to dial-up at this point, I don't think. But we are blending neuroinclusion with real life and juggling. This podcast is going to focus on how to do it. We want to support each other. We haven't got all the answers. Everything we say is our opinion. We want to hear from you guys as well. Tell us your experiences. So we're going to have a look at future episodes, time hacks, accommodation wins, how to handle performance conversations that don't feel like an escape room.
So tell us your stories. Did you ever disclose ADHD or autism and watch the interviewer's face do a slow motion nope? Or maybe you had a brilliant manager who completely changed the game. Send a 90-second voice note or comment on the post. What adjustments helped you the most? How do you juggle work and home and everything else? What is the one thing that you wish your leaders knew?
Yeah, and I think that is a huge one. What do you wish your leaders knew? Because quite often we think things, but we don't speak them, and it's important to put those points across. So obviously any clips that we get we'll share anonymised. We will obviously take every comment, every inbox, we'll read it all. We want to swap tips, and the plan is to build the neuroinclusive playbook, because different brains aren't a bug, they are the future. Podcast disclaimer. The views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the hosts. We are not experts, specialists or professionals, and nothing we discuss should be taken as advice. Our conversations are based around our own experiences, ideas and perspectives. They are intended for general discussion and entertainment only. If you need guidance, support or advice with a professional, personal, medical, legal, financial or otherwise, please seek help from a qualified professional. By listening to this podcast, you understand and agree that the hosts are not responsible for any actions you choose to take based on what you hear.